Welcome to Lesson 1, Overcoming Fear and Anxiety. The anxiety and fear that sometimes come along with speaking in front of an audience is a common problem among new speakers. Lesson 1 will explain the science behind these feelings and then provide tips and techniques for overcoming speakers' anxiety. After completing this lesson, you will be able to complete the following learning objectives. Identify the factors that contribute to the fear and anxiety of presenting in front of an audience, and identify ways to minimize public speaking anxiety. Although public speaking may not be everyone's favorite activity, anyone can definitely improve their skills and learn to give effective presentations. The fear of public speaking is a real phenomenon. It is one of the most common phobias in the country, and it even ranks above death, spiders, clowns, or my phobia, height. The National Institute of Mental Health reports that public speaking anxiety, also known as glossophobia, actually affects about 73% of the population. The fear of public speaking can hinder us from sharing ideas and offering solutions to problems. It can also limit how much we grow personally and professionally. Although it sounds scary, there is hope for managing this very common problem. Public speaking is a core skill that is applicable to everyone. No matter what your ambitions or interests, it will definitely benefit you in your personal and professional life. Presentations actually do not just take place at conferences or in classrooms. What if you're asked to give a toast at a wedding, speak at a funeral of a friend or family member, or give or accept an award? If fear is the obstacle that constantly gets in the way of your ability to speak in public, just remember that you don't have to completely overcome it, but just learn to manage it. Sometimes taking the plunge is all you need to build your confidence. Here are a couple of quotes that indicate that even the most accomplished speakers admit that fear never completely goes away. Mark Twain once said, "There are two types of speakers, those that are nervous and those that are liars." Dale Carnegie said, there are always three speeches for every one you actually gave: the one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave. You have the courage to step out of your comfort zone. The more experience you have under your belt, the easier it gets. The stress, fear, and anxiety of speaking in front of a group can usually be put into perspective by asking yourself a couple of questions. First, is this situation a threat to my well-being? You may think it is because fear is real. However, it is probably not a threat to your well-being, especially if you know the steps to manage it. Secondly, do I have the means to accept or meet the challenge, such as the energy, time, skills, and experience? The answer is yes. You are the expert, and you have the knowledge and skills that someone thought were good enough to share. As long as you have the time to adequately prepare and the knowledge to effectively manage your presentation, there is no reason you can't do this. The more passionate and knowledgeable you are about the topic, the less nervous you will appear. The symptoms you may experience when you are afraid can be quite scary, such as a racing heart or breaking out in a sweat. However, those are actually normal physiological reactions that the body undergoes when it feels threatened or in danger. Although speaking in front of a group is not a true threat, the physiological symptoms are very real. As you experience this fear, it can interfere with your ability to perform comfortably in front of an audience. After the lesson, if you want to learn more about the detailed science behind stage fright, check out this TED Talk by Michael Cho. It can be found at icn.ms/201L0HC. And be sure when you type that web address in that the letters that are capitalized in that link, you use case-specific letters. According to Psychology Today, the fear of public speaking stems more from how the speaker feels, thinks, and acts. It's not so much about the content of the speech. Multiple reasons actually contribute to why people become afraid when having to speak before a group. There are 4 contributing factors that stem from various theories as to why people become afraid. First is physiological. The autonomic nervous system is your natural defense system, and it includes a range of feelings. Second are your thoughts. How are you perceived, whether how you perceive yourself or by others? And those feelings of self-sabotage. Third, the situations. The feeling of being evaluated, of being in front of certain groups, or of sharing new ideas. And fourth, skills. How much experience have you had? Maybe it's not a specific skill set that you feel that you possess. Or also, maybe you don't feel that you're competent enough in that area to share the information. To manage the fear of speaking in public, you need to first understand what causes your fear. Our brains are wired to fear the worst possible situation that we could possibly get ourselves into. That specific situation varies among individuals. Many years ago, our ancestors may have feared being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Today, we still have real fears, and our brains can't distinguish between a real threat, such as being robbed at gunpoint, or an imagined threat, such as presenting in front of a group. Understanding that it's a false alarm, we're going to call it the false alarm concept, it can actually help you manage the fear that goes along with it. There is no real danger. As you feel your hands start to sweat or your heart begin to race as you start your presentation, consciously interrupt that fear response by taking a quick deep breath and reminding yourself it's just a false alarm. The more you get in the habit of recognizing these types of responses, the easier it will actually be to manage. So the spreadsheet that you saw on the previous page, or the worksheet, was called My Greatest Fear. That's the next activity we're going to do, and I'm going to share an example with you so you can see how it works before you fill it out. One of my greatest fears when I have a public speaking engagement is that I will stumble and fall when I walk on the stage. So as you think through the My Greatest Fear activity, the next thing you ask yourself is, what is the worst thing that could happen if my fear came true? Okay, so if I stumbled and fell walking onto the stage, what is the worst thing that could happen? Well, people would probably laugh, and these days it would show up all over social media. Then the next thing you ask yourself is, what is the best thing that could happen if my fear came true? In this case, they could probably see that I was human and make mistakes, and I could possibly even be asked to speak at another event based on how well I handled it. The next question to ask yourself is, what could I do to prevent this from happening? You could actually do a few things. I could tour the presentation area the day before to see what the area looked like. I could wear low-heeled, comfortable shoes, and I could prepare a funny one-liner for a recovery statement. And then last but not least, ask yourself, is this fear realistic? Well, in my case, not really, but it could happen, although it is highly unlikely. So now it's your turn. Find your My Greatest Fear worksheet, then take a few minutes and think through your greatest fears when it comes to public speaking, and use this worksheet to guide you through the process. Always remember to stop at the "is this fear realistic?" This is where you want to be sure and evaluate, is it a realistic fear that takes you out of that false alarm feeling and helps you interrupt those feelings. Now that you understand why so many people suffer from a fear of public speaking, let's take a look at some tips and proven techniques that will ease your mind and have you engaging in smooth, well thought out presentations in no time. We're going to start by focusing on what you can do before your presentation. The first step to quieting your fears is being prepared and knowing your material. The better you know your content, the less likely you are to lose your thoughts, and when you do, you're more easily able to recover. Only agree to speak on topics that you are familiar and passionate about. Your enthusiasm for the subject will seamlessly transfer to your audience. Know the room, both the physical layout and the participants. You always want to visit the location before you speak if possible. Make sure all of the logistics are set well in advance. You want to be relaxed and focused, not scrambling around to get the audio working. If possible, arrange to do a dry run with all of the audio-visual equipment ahead of time. Make sure you understand how to operate the microphone since there are several different kinds. This is actually an opportunity for you to also ask for any help if you are uncertain how to use the equipment. As for the participants, communicate with the host. Find out who will be in attendance. Your approach for line cooks will be completely different than for USDA staff. Speaking to students will be different than presenting to faculty and staff. Plan your presentation for those who will be in the room. Visualize success. Practice. This is a necessity, and you should begin early and do it often. This helps you get comfortable with your timing and how your thoughts are laid out. Rehearse in front of a mirror. Visualize the participants smiling at you and enjoying your presentation. Ask your friends to lend a listening ear as you rehearse your speech. They can help review your material and ask follow-up questions. Then when you're a little bit more comfortable with your presentation, have them ask more difficult questions and act like an indifferent audience. You know, the ones who aren't smiling back. Play out the toughest scenarios in advance so you won't have any surprises when it's showtime. Next, avoid caffeine and salty foods. In the time before your presentation, it is really important to avoid these two things. Caffeine may make you jittery, and salty foods can cause your mouth to feel dry. A lighter meal on the day you are presenting may also make you feel better. Visiting the restroom. Now, this one may sound like a no-brainer, but a trip to the restroom just prior to a presentation is always wise. Although it sounds kind of funny, visiting the restroom just a few minutes before you present actually allows you to gather your breath, do a quick stretch, and get your last moments of thoughts together. Finally, use meditation, breathing exercises, techniques, and stretching. Never underestimate the positive effect taking several deep breaths can have. Do this right before you walk on the stage. Meditation, stretching, and other relaxation techniques are also useful for working out the jitters and getting you in a calm frame of mind. Now let's talk about what to do during your presentation. You want to be aware of your body movements. Consciously notice if you have any repetitive fidgets or motions such as twirling your hair, swaying back and forth, or rubbing your face. These can be very distracting to your audience. If one is available, use the podium as a stabilizer. This is your comfort zone. Just be sure that you do not lean on it. A podium is meant to hold your notes, not your body. If you are uncertain whether you have any distracting body movements, video yourself for practice and you may be surprised what you see. Adjust your speaking rate. It is not necessary to rush. Be calm and take your time. Use pauses after the opening as you transition between main talking points and after you close. Use notes sparingly. Trying to memorize a speech almost always results in poor performances. An index card, though, that has your key bullet points written on it will help free your mind and allow you to stay engaged with the audience. Just be sure not to rely on the notes so much that you find yourself reading the majority of the information. Reduce or relieve the pressure from yourself. You can do this by making the presentation more interactive. The more interactive it is, the less stress you actually feel, and it becomes more like a conversation with the audience. Most people actually prefer a type of casual interaction as opposed to talking to them from a stage or podium. Focus on a friendly face. Finding a friendly face in the crowd and focusing on them is a quick way to ease your initial anxiety. The positive reinforcement from a nodding head or a smile has a very calming effect, and it is okay to stay focused on them until you feel more relaxed. Use props. A well-placed water bottle and a short pause for a sip not only gives you a break, but also draws the attention back to you and what you are saying. And finally, avoid calling attention to your nervousness. You are always more nervous than you appear to your audience, so never admit it. Avoid phrases like, "Oh my goodness, I am so nervous," or "I think I'm about to pass out," or even, "This is my first time, so please excuse me if I'm nervous." As hard as it is to imagine, you probably look perfectly normal, and your audience assumes that you are the outgoing, confident speaker that you strive to be. One of the best things you can actually do is keep a positive mindset, whether before or during the presentation. Remember, the audience is actually on your side. They came to hear you. They want to know what you have to say. Be confident in who you are and what you know. Now, granted, confidence alone does not guarantee a successful presentation, but it certainly helps. After the lesson, if you want to learn a few tips to help boost your confidence, check out this TED Ed video. You can find it at icn.ms/2 capital O, capital F, lowercase s, lowercase x, capital Z, capital X. Again, those are case sensitive. Now that you have an understanding of the factors that contribute to stage fright and have learned some tips and techniques to minimize it, you'll be able to deliver your message with confidence and pride. You should now be able to identify the factors that contribute to the fear and anxiety of presenting in front of an audience and identify the ways to minimize public speaking anxiety. To wrap up this lesson, you will take the Lesson 1 post quiz. Then, before moving on to Lesson 2, you will take a pre-quiz to help determine what you already know about the material contained in that lesson.